U.S. President Joe Biden is taking part in the NATO summit and looking to use the organization's 75th anniversary meeting as a way to spotlight support for Ukraine in its fight against Russia and to reset his stumbling campaign. There are some major updates to tell you on that front a little later, but we begin with the military alliance and what came out of the first full day of the summit.
Ladies and gentlemen, please look into the camera for 8 seconds.
NATO leaders posed for a family photo at the start of their 75th anniversary summit in Washington, D.C.
We can and will defend every inch of NATO territory, and we'll do it together.
President Biden and leaders of other NATO member states held a working session to announce new aid for Ukraine, a minimum funding of $43 billion in military assistance within the next year.
Support to Ukraine is not charity. It is in our own security interest.
And they stressed a membership pledge for Ukraine. This after Biden promised to defend Kyiv against the Russian invasion.
Ukraine moves irreversibly along the path to membership.
World leaders and NATO members echoing those exact sentiments.
O tym, że droga Ukrainy do NATO jest nieodwracalna.
Poland's president saying the path for Ukraine to NATO is irreversible.
I think it's very important to give a message to the Kremlin from here that Ukraine's path and bridge towards NATO membership is now irreversible.
I think you can guess the word of the day.
President, have you invited the speaker to Kyiv?
We just started.
President Vladimir Zelensky, who has battled for a spot in NATO, is in Washington, D.C., holding meetings on the sidelines of the summit. The Ukrainian president gave medals to both the U.S. majority and minority leaders who have helped pass, along with Congress, $175 billion in aid for Ukraine since Russia invaded in 2022. And Zelensky will meet with Biden tomorrow.
We will increase our support for Ukraine by establishing a NATO coordination and the security assistance and training for Ukraine, and by ensuring a sustained support for the long term.
But many have been opposed to full NATO membership for the war-torn country to avoid an escalation with Russia that could lead to an even larger war. The U.S. Secretary of Defense trying to ease those concerns at the summit today.
We will not be dragged into Putin's reckless war of choice. But we will stand by Ukraine as it fights for its sovereignty and security.
The U.S. has assured that Ukraine will be allowed to join the Western Self-Defense Alliance after its war against Russia ends, one that just saw its worst attack in months, the bombing of a children's hospital and maternity clinic.
You see parents, and then when their children are dying or dead, so it's you want to kill Putin at this moment. And of course, all of them, all of us, we want it very much.
When the war will end is unclear. Another big question that remains unanswered is what would happen if Russia were to invade again in the years to come. As NATO's Article 5 states, an armed attack against one shall be considered an attack against all.